Welcome back to today's episode entitled Equality and Hierarchy. In the series entitled Karma, Destiny and Choice, we are looking at various subjects that are of interest to humanity as a whole. And this subject caught our attention because many have the question in their minds as to whether we're all equal or is humanity structured in a massive hierarchy. Yeah, that's the question. So to answer this interesting question, I have in the studio with me Sister Denise from the Brahma Kumaris. Hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you.
When I read the title of today's show, I thought of the last line of George Orwell's Animal Farm, where he said, ironically and satirically, all are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and there is a lot of truth in humor or jest. So, was he right?
I think what he meant by all are equal and some are more equal than others is that nobody's equal.
Yeah. So let's take this from the top. As our Creator intended for us to be, were we all meant to be equal or not?
It depends on your perception of the meaning of creation.
Mm-hmm.
We say that a soul is eternal and immortal, and most people accept that idea. But the implication is that you never were created, which means that there's no argument for equality. Because if God created everybody, it would be normal to create everybody equal. This is logical. But if everybody's already there, then there's nothing like who's responsible. And so it takes you to a very, very deep question about the relationship between souls and how to think about yourself as never having not existed. It's very, very difficult for a person who normally is linearly thinking. You go on any tombstone, you have a date of birth, this line in between, and then a date of death. So your life is a little like about as long as a hyphen. And it has a start and a continuation and an end. So people think like that about a person's existence. But the spirituality says, no, you've always ever been. And what God says is there's a hierarchy of souls.
Aha, so there is a hierarchy.
Oh, yes.
Right.
But you don't know who you are.
There's that caveat.
You don't know who anybody else is. You don't know who you're sitting next to. You know, because everyone has been reincarnating. And when you're in your first birth, that's your famous birth. If you say Jesus Christ, right? First birth. Okay, we have a photograph, we know what it looks like, the history. After that, we don't know. Buddha, you know his birth. After that, you don't know. You have any famous person in the world, okay, there they are, they have their life. When they die, after that, you don't know where they reincarnate. It's unknown.
We have an intrinsic quality of wanting to rise.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that mean that we're eventually meant to take our place on the ladder of life?
Put it like this. At a time when everyone is empty, we are all equally empty. So there is equality in emptiness.
I actually wondered, given the levels of sorrow I've seen and the various types of sorrow, whether some are slightly empty and others are fully empty.
Well, I'm sure there is going to be some variations, definitely.
Okay, there are.
But overall, because of the nature of the world cycle and so many aspects of the spiritual knowledge, we would say that everyone is now in their weakest position.
Okay, yeah.
Relative to their strongest position. You only really find out what your capacity is when you start filling. So if you start filling and filling and filling and filling, as with a battery, you will charge yourself up to the capacity of that battery. So if you're an 8-volt battery, you will charge up to 8 volts. But if you're a 100-volt battery, then you'll keep charging until you get to that limit. If you're 1,000 volt, you go up to that. If you're 10,000 volts, 100,000 volts, whatever. But there's a large number of low voltage souls and a small number of high voltage souls. So the hierarchy is a bit pyramid shaped.
How does one establish what quality of soul you really are? How do you know for sure?
You remember I was telling you that one criteria that I find quite important in evaluating people is, are they motivated by love for God and love for humanity?
Yeah.
And when that is like very high level and very complete, that's a sign of a very high level soul. And if a person has a bit of love for God and a slight amount of love for a few humans, but mostly for themselves, there's a lower one. And then there's a spectrum in between.
I'm thinking of this expression that the media mogul Oprah Winfrey uses, that much is expected from the one to whom much has been given. The question that comes to mind when I think of that expression is, why is it that some people are given so much and others not so? Or does it just seem that way?
No, it depends on the capacity. If you have a big capacity, it's not that you are given a lot necessarily, but you take a lot. So you're a high caliber soul, you have high energy, a lot of it, you can do a lot more than somebody who's low energy or small amount of energy.
So there are a number of high quality souls walking around planet Earth as we speak who have no idea that they are high quality because they're empty.
I think they have some suspicions and they have some ideals that they aspire to for themselves. But it's only when they start really filling, when they connect with God and really start filling, that's when that they start realizing, oh my God, I can take more and more and more and more. And who am I? Who am I? And you start to feel things about yourself. Because when you are a very high caliber soul, that means you have a very high capacity. It means you have a very high destiny. That means you have a lot of characteristics that are needed in a high level soul. You can do stuff and you start remembering it. And then that starts getting activated and you start becoming who you really are. When you're totally depleted, you have no idea who you are.
How does one's relationship with God determine what place you have in the hierarchy, apart from what you just said earlier?
In England, long ago, there was something called the Magna Carta.
I remember that. It was King John.
Anyway, it talks about the divine right of kings.
Yeah.
And what is said in different religions is God creates the kingdom. You never heard of the Republic of Paradise, right?
Now that you mention, no, I haven't. Yeah.
It's the kingdom of heaven. And then what a kingdom means is there's a king and a queen and various princesses and all of this royalty. And then people who are what's known as commoners, and then there are, there's a social hierarchy. Presumably in paradise there is this hierarchy, and the king is the one who has so much love and gives so much energy that every person in the kingdom is sustained by the king's energy. This energy is given to that soul who becomes the king by God, and it's not given just especially favor this one, but what God does at this time is says, okay, I'm available now, start charging yourself. So someone who charges a lot, they take a lot of energy, They have a lot available, and they gradually study and become the king. A king is somebody who becomes a king through donation.
What kind of donation?
If you give everything you have for the love of God and for the love of humanity, this is what makes you a king. There's a karma.
So, no king arrived on the throne by mistake.
I think there would be a lot of people who would argue with that.
Yes, I'm just thinking of what happened to the British throne and the controversy surrounding this one and that one.
In the spiritual study that I work with, it is said that you can become a king through donation, you can become a king through war. You take over somebody else's kingdom, kill that king and take over their kingdom, and so that's another way to get a kingdom, but you can't hold on to it very long. Someone who becomes a king by massive donation over a long period of time, they become a king many, many lives, you see. But you don't see much evidence of that in the world as we know it, because it's all about negative karma at the present time. So generally speaking, the people who we see who are in positions of power, they acquire their position through, I may say, questionable means. There are not very many kingdoms. Those that are there, they're not like big power players in the world today. In the past it was, but not now. Now it's elected officials or people who are behind that. Now it's even, corporations who are outside the rule of law, this kind of thing. But in ancient times it was kings, and very often there would be kings over quite small territories. And then you have the world emperors, and in Indian mythology they often talk about the world emperor, the Chakravarti Raja. This is connected with one who is a king over themselves. So in the practice of Raj Yoga, you study this, how to be a master of yourself completely, and then how to sustain and care for those who are in your purview, and maintain that generosity. And this will give you the sanskaras and the karma to become a king over a long period of time. It doesn't imply tyranny. You do have many examples of tyrants who are kings, but they do not keep that position very long.
Sister Denise, if a hierarchy is the order of the day, as it were, why is it in the world that we live in today the greatest system of government is considered to be a democracy? I'm thinking specifically of India, and one of the things that India boasts is that it's the world's largest democracy. And most people's attention are drawn towards the United States because they consider it to be the world's greatest superpower based on democracy. Is democracy an attempt to say that all are equal?
When democracy was set up in Greece, in 5th century Athens.
Most people don't know that that's where democracy took birth.
Yeah, it's a Greek system. And it was only the men who could vote, and only the elite of the society who could vote. So it was democratic only for the elite males of that society, and even then it didn't work very well. But it's an idea that people have put their energy behind, but the principles of democracy and the practicalities are a little far apart from each other.
In what way?
Equality implies that you're all equally informed, which they're not. You're all equally able to process the political information that you need to process in order to give an informed vote, which they're not. You vote for candidates who will get your vote through honourable or dishonourable means. At every step, the principle of democracy gets compromised and corrupted. So it's called democracy, but it's still very hierarchical. You know, in communism, it's totally hierarchical. So it's natural in human society for there to be hierarchy. And the problem is not really hierarchy, the problem is tyranny.
There are individuals in this world who are of very high quality, and one of their stances is that they treat everyone as equals. There's a lot to be said about such an individual because they afford respect to both superiors and subordinates alike. And such an individual garners a lot of respect in today's world.
Absolutely, and people who are democratic in that way are very high in the hierarchy.
Ironically.
Yes, it's a paradox, but people who have that way, they're greatly loved, and the more you are loved, the higher up in the hierarchy you are.
Love.
Loved by people. If you're loved by people, they give you their vote, as it were.
Like Nelson Mandela.
Another thing I would like to add to the mix is that from a spiritual point of view, everyone is equally a brother. All souls are brothers. When you get a body, you become brothers and sisters. That fraternal relationship is the closest thing you have to equality, because what is required in a fraternal relationship is a relationship of love and regard. There's no other obligation. This word equality, people have interpreted it sometimes in ways that are quite impractical. So I think it's a misleading word. Everybody has a right to your love and a right to be treated in the way the Declaration of Human Rights declares. And if people would recognize other people's rights, in spite of there being a hierarchy, there wouldn't be abuse. People tried to take down monarchy because it was abusive and put a republican system instead, with the idea that if you got rid of the monarchy, then everybody would be nice to each other, but it didn't work. They're not. It became, in many ways, worse.
The world is filled with many people who are desperately miserable at their lot in life. And you have many who want to be there, but who are here and have no idea how to bridge the gap.
Spirituality will say you have created your situation through your karma. And then people say nasty words about karma as if karma is the problem, but you act in a certain way which causes you to be at the bottom of the pile. Who is responsible? You are responsible.
That's it takes a lot of courage to accept that, Sister Denise. But my corollary on that is, if you have reached rock bottom and if you are on the receiving end of your own adverse karma, are you doomed for life?
No, you have to start doing pure karma. You have to start taking power from God. You better discipline yourself and pay attention, because otherwise you're going to go further down. It's in your hands.
There's an expression that goes something to the effect of, as being a child of the universe, you deserve your place in the sun. I'm not sure who said it, but within the greater scheme of things, how does one know where do you fit in as far as the rungs of the ladder are concerned?
Well, you will find out when you start performing correct karma, and when you start filling with spiritual power, that's when you find out. But not until, because you're just free fall going down.
All of humanity is doing that?
All of humanity who is disregarding the knowledge about karma and disregarding the possibility of taking strength from God, then they're going down, definitely.
How does soul consciousness fit into the picture of equality and hierarchy? Are some more soul conscious than others?
Oh, most definitely.
Oh, really?
Because it's a practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
You practice to be soul conscious, so that means you have to interpret it however you interpret it. If you interpret it well, you'll have a high level of soul consciousness, you'll have more. And you will keep yourself very near to God because you're on that wavelength. If you don't understand what it is, you just have the expression, but you don't know how to interpret it, you'll remain far. You'll be trying to figure it out, and maybe you'll say, okay, it must be like this, and maybe it isn't. So you'll be struggling. So there's that possibility. There's some who say, well, I'm not a soul, so they can't be soul conscious unless they think that they're a soul. And so it's very individual. But if a person gets it and they take advantage of it, they start going up.
Then we have many individuals who compare where they're at to where other people are at. It is now common knowledge that 1% of the world owns 97% of the world's wealth. And so there are those who think, how come I'm not one of those? How come I'm a humble state employee in the middle of nowhere? Comparison. Does it ever make sense to compare yourself to another?
I think I would have to say that it doesn't make sense, because you do not know the karmic story of the person that you envy.
That is so true. You just see what's on the outside.
Yeah, you don't know the backstory. You don't know what's going to happen next. You know, someone can be on the top and next day on the bottom. You know, the people who own the 97% of the world's resources, how did they get it? What kind of karma did they do? You know, when you investigate it, and there are investigative journalists who do this as their profession, and they dig up all sorts of things which doesn't correspond to pure karma, which means that they wouldn't be able to hold on to that 97% too long.
As we've seen the 2008 crisis.
Oh, well, there's another one coming.
Yeah, okay, I don't think we should scare people right now with that. Let's talk about that on some other day. This has been quite a fascinating conversation. We're about to say goodbye to our audience. What are your parting words to them?
Everyone has a capacity for greatness.
That is so lovely. We hear those words far too little.
And the thing is, activate it by really thinking about yourself as a soul and thinking about your soul contact with God and taking the energy that you have a right to. And then you will arrive at your greatness.
Oh, that is so big. It's big. Yeah. Oh, what a high note on which to end today's chat. Thank you. Thank you. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I hope you are feeling it at home as well. This is a lovely conversation that I enjoyed with Sister Denise. I hope you have too. And I really love the note on which she ended, that every single one of us has a capacity for greatness. I do invite you to discover your own capacity for greatness and understand that wherever you may be in life, you can improve your situation through your relationship with the divine. Thank you so much for joining us, and many blessings, Sister Denise, for your magnificent intellect. Many blessings, and many blessings to you at home as well. Take care, and see you for the next episode. Goodbye.